My name is John McKeon. I'm the moderator for the Teradata River, and today we have with us Robert Keast, Head of Marketing Channels and Transformation for RBC Royal Bank. Robert, welcome to the River.
Thanks, John.
Robert, what has really driven RBC's change to the client contact strategy?
You know what, John? I want to start by saying I think that Royal Bank's been very successful operating the way it has for obviously a number of years. The focus on traditional marketing tactics, traditional marketing channels has really made us a very successful organization, and we still are. I think our change for our client contact strategy is really due to the increased pressures of the changes that consumers are demanding now. I mean, consumers are starting to do more on their own. They're starting to use self-serve channels. There's a greater demand for the level of service when they choose to interact with us. I think a lot of the traditional channels they've used in the past, they're changing on us now. So a lot of the time, consumers come to us, and through their own research, they become far more informed than even a lot of our own frontline employees are. So I think it's because of this. We need to start thinking differently and gain a better understanding around consumers' needs, their behaviors, and how we react with those. And we need to be able to provide advice to our consumers when they need it and whenever they choose to interact with us. It really is about producing that one client, one bank dynamic.
Well, Robert, so how do you actually make the change? That's the big kahuna.
Well, the changes that we're looking at making, they sound pretty straightforward. They probably even sound pretty basic and simple. But I think that anyone that's done this successfully, or anyone that's in the process of doing this, realizes exactly how complex it really is. It comes down to so many factors. You know, what's the acceptance level of all of your line of business partners? How prepared are your frontline staff of making changes? How do you start continually declining marketing budgets and increase demand for capacity? What information do you have to improve your decision-making abilities? I mean, you could go on for hours with that list. What we're focusing on is how we use information in our supporting infrastructure to really increase the timeliness and the relevancy of our communications, whether that be through event-based marketing or intelligent inbound. It's about doing more with your clients with every interaction to start optimizing your resources to provide the best level of advice you can for your clients. As I mentioned earlier, consumers are really starting to do more with channels, and it's critical that multiple channels are enabled to do more with our clients. Providing in-session support when clients come to us through employee-facing or self-serve channels, we have to be far more aware of how they're using the channels, what they're doing, and present that information to our frontline staff. If I want to be able to react appropriately, it would be great to know that if I see a client that's searching for mortgage rates on their smartphone or on their internet, and I can now start to present that information to a frontline staff for the next time they interact with a client, it's going to create a far more powerful experience. And really, lastly, it's about continuing the relationship. Sometimes the most important conversation we can have with a client is about finding out what their future goals and milestones are. What do they need in the future? And then how can we collect that information and start to use that information to create actionable insights and programs to have the next best interaction with that client?
Robert, can you give me some specific examples of where it's a win-win, where RBC wins and the consumer wins?
I think an example of where both RBC wins and the consumer wins under this model really comes down to how effectively you marry that information up with your offers and your power and ability to react to that. So, for example, I may decide that the best offer for you might be a new credit card. However, based upon what your needs are, if I can start to uncover that you're searching for mortgage rates on the internet, or you're trying to compare new checking accounts because there's a specific need that you have, regardless of what I've decided, when you come to me, having the ability to understand that and to react to your needs to provide you what you need, not just that credit card that I've decided you're eligible for, Having that whole view of relevancy for the client is going to drive a lot of client satisfaction, a positive client experience. It's very timely, very relevant. We better understand the client needs, and ultimately, in the end, we're creating a far more longer-term valued relationship with that client.
Excellent, Robert. You talked about process, and how do you actually deal with all the elements of really making the change, the process, the culture, the organizational structure? Give me some of the nuances of actually making the change.
I think the ability to do any of this is obviously dependent upon a very strong foundation of your infrastructure. I mean, you can't go to a race without a race car, but more importantly, you're not going to be able to unleash the true potential of that race car unless you have a highly skilled, highly trained race car driver. So I think that people often underestimate the power of people and process through a lot of their initiatives and what that brings to the table. The business strategy has that same fundamental. No matter how sophisticated the infrastructure, if your people are not willing and able to make the change, you're not going to be successful. The behavioral change and investing in your people is going to provide you with the most sustainable business results in the long run. By giving them what's in it for them, what's different for them, what's going to ensure, that's what's going to drive that continued employee engagement and those successful results, which ultimately is going to allow you to start to transform your business partners and allow them to have trust that through the client contact strategy, they're still going to be able to sell their products. They're still going to be able to drive revenue. So really, this is the approach around people and process that I'm really going to focus and hone in on in my discussion in October at the Partners Conference.
Robert Keast, Head of Marketing Channels and Transformation. He is speaking at the upcoming Partners Conference. It should be a fantastic talk, and I encourage you to attend it. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, John.